Well, today I'll be refuting the claim that a stricter observance of capital punishment will lead to less crime. The first of the advocate's supporting claims was that 3 to 18 lives could be saved with the conviction of every killer. The second supporting claim was that in the long run, the death penalty is cheaper than life imprisonment. Their final supporting claim was that the innocent executions are rare. My counterclaim is that the evidence and reasoning provided within their arguments are speculation, false, and irrelevant. The advocates first claim that 3 to 18 lives could be saved with the conviction of every killer does not have any backing. This piece of information was taken from an MSNBC article where analysts say that 3 to 18 lives could be saved, but they do not give names of the analysts or any research that has been done to prove this information. The advocate's second claim is that in the long run, the death penalty is cheaper than life imprisonment. Using the testimony of Edward Sutherland, the former president of the American Sociological Society, he states that the initial cost of the death penalty is higher over an extended period of time, but the cost of life without parole will more than catch up to it. This testimony was made in 1974 revised edition of his book Criminology. This testimony was made from a very out-of-date piece of data. The advocate also gives us the support that life without parole will cost $1.2 to $3.6 million more than the death penalty case. This statistic is given by the Justice for All organization, which is a criminal justice reform organization that advocates for the death penalty, which can lead to bias. Third of the advocate's claim, the third claim is that innocent executions are rare. This claim is irrelevant to the main claim. The rarity of innocent executions does not affect the claim that a stricter observance of capital punishment will lead to less crime. The advocate's main claim is that a stricter observance of capital punishment will lead to less crime, and supports this claim with secondary claims that lives can be saved, the death penalty is less costly than life without parole, and innocent executions are rare. The advocate has unsubstantiated, biased, outdated, and irrelevant evidence that makes the evidence and reasoning insufficient to the conclusion that stricter observance of capital punishment will lead to less crime. Thank you.
All right, all the structural things are fine. I don't have any problem with that. It's easy to follow. On the first point, your challenge is to the backing that the advocate used. You basically suggest that because there's an absence of source on this, that it's not really reliable. And I think that's a good press to make. It would be especially good press to make if you were immediately responding to an argument, like 2 minutes after they spoke. I think it's the right kind of thing to do. However, having had 2 weeks of preparation, I don't think it would be too hard to find the grounds that the advocate is referring to and maybe do a little bit more in-depth analysis of it. So although it's an appropriate response, I'm not sure it's a sufficient response on this point, and you could be a lot more convincing given the amount of time that you had to prepare. On the cost issue, again, I thought that you had a good challenge about the timeliness of the evidence that the advocate presented, but the claim about costs, I think, is a little bit problematic. You make an argument about bias on the source, on the advocate's second source, and again, a challenge of bias is perfectly reasonable to consider. However, in the absence of any counter evidence, I'm not sure that the conclusion is really challenged that well. And again, if you were standing up 20 seconds after the advocate finished speaking and making these challenges, I'd say, well, those are good, clear initial responses. But you're a little underprepared, I think, on those points. I did think on the third point that you had a very clear explanation and reason as to why it's not relevant to the point that's being presented, and that's probably apparent to everybody. You have a lot more time, so it wouldn't have hurt at all to develop some information to support the refutation claims that you're making. Thank you.